Are you a tired Catholic mom who struggles with guilt around investing in self care? Are you a Catholic mom who feels divided or feels like adding anything else on her schedule that might be an investment in herself? It's just not at all possible. Today on the Possibility Mom Live, we are going to chat on how to balance spiritual growth and self care. I'm so excited. My friends, I am coming out of a time of a little bit of like recalibration. Oh my word. We had our very first hurricane, like as Floridians. We moved to Florida about 3 years ago and lived through our first category 4 hurricane. I am told that that is very high and that, wow, what a first one to go through. And then it was a lot of recalibration after. I mentioned last week on the podcast really quickly that thankfully, thanks be to God, we did not sustain any physical damage to our home or our car or property or anybody in the family. But of course, it was an interesting recalibration of no power, no internet. For a really, really, just a block of time. And that, of course, is interesting when you run a business online. So it's been just a real interesting recalibration. It was a very welcome little break, if I'm being very honest, in that sense. But it's been a time of recalibration that I'm feeling like, okay, I'm like I feel a little bit like more, I don't know, put together. So it has made me think about this topic, how to balance appointments in your calendar. And we're going to talk about this because it's so much more than appointments in your calendar, but spiritual growth and self-care, because I needed a lot of self-care over the last 2 weeks. I did not realize how stressed I would be, like from the hurricane. I did not realize the uncertainty of it put me in a lot of stress. Immediately following that, we had a very stressful incident with some beautiful families local to my town who were in a very serious car accident. So it went from, I remember looking at my phone all the time about the hurricane. Like, do we have power? Do we have internet? Are we back online? Trying to like get a signal to see what, was going on. And then it went right back to, oh my gosh, are the boys okay? Like literally picking up my phone, sometimes really afraid of what I was going to see and all that stuff. So it's just made me really realize how important it is that we do not discount, that we do not eliminate, and we do not over spiritualize. Because sometimes what my observation is, including myself, of Catholics especially, is that we simply just say, like, oh, I just need an increase in faith. 100%, we always need an increase in faith. But what I think is so important to remember that I want to unpack in today's episode is that we are also very human. We are corporeal. Like it is just, we are human beings who have a human body that cannot operate on little sleep, like the ramifications that come when we are not taking care of ourselves. And I observe a lot of drama in myself as well as in the women I coach around self care, around these things that are simply necessary because we are human beings. I like to think of it sometimes as 1 + 1 = 2, meaning there are just certain realities that we cannot fight with. The human body can only go through so much stress before it shuts down sometimes. Like a car, to just use another analogy, can only go so far on gas without being replenished, right? And so it's such an important conversation, and again, a nuanced one for women of faith, because my observation is sometimes we can simply chalk up what is actually a human exhaustion problem with and make it a spiritual problem when indeed it is not. But before we do that, We're going to be trying something new on the show over the next few weeks, and I really welcome your feedback. I want you to let me know what you think about it. But we're going to try some regular segments on the Possibility Mom Live. And so this is the part of the show where I'm going to react to something either, topical and trending, something that's in the news. And today I'm going to be reacting to a video I have not seen yet. So I have not seen this video. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And I'm going to be reacting to this TikTok video by Emily Falver in real time. So here we go.
My toddler's reaction when I told her I was adopted.
My mom? Yeah. Me. Bye, Mommy. Bye. Bye, I was adopted, actually. Why? Because my mommy didn't want me. I know. My mommy didn't want me, so a new mommy didn't adopt me. I want your mom. Yeah. So it's so sweet. That's exactly what I like. I want.
Oh, oh, bless that child's heart. Oh wow. Okay, so that's the very first time I've seen that video. Obviously, as you can see, if you're watching this in video form, it's causing me a lot of emotion. I think what is just a core unifying thing of all human beings is everybody wants to feel wanted. Everybody wants to feel like they have a place to belong. And oh, bless her little heart, that little girl. Children have such a special way of saying the truth and saying it with such abandon. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And her echoing to her mom, I want you, I'll be your mommy. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. But what it really brings to the surface, again, I have not watched that. I was not my show producer, my husband, Josh Canning, served that up to me without me really knowing anything about it. I've not seen that video before. So this is a very genuine reaction. What it is stirring up in me is how much we are all wanted. How much we are all wanted by our Heavenly Father. And I think about this a great deal when I get persnickety about my human limitations. And I think about just challenges that I have around control and perfection and seeking, being hard on myself. And sometimes feeling like catching myself feeling like uh, that, you know, I'm not doing enough. Um, I really try my very best to bring everything back to my existence is enough. My existence as a child of God is enough, and that nothing I can do can ever change that or make me earn the love of our Heavenly Father. So I invite you to go watch that TikTok video, Emily Falver on TikTok, revealing that she was adopted to her daughter and her daughter's sweet, sweet reaction. And this actually, again, this was a surprise to me. I did not know what this video was going to be. This cues us up really well in to today's topic, how to balance spiritual growth and self-care. And so I want to offer just a couple of things that are really practical, some mindset related, because you always know I'm going to go mindset as a mindset coach. But I really want to bring it just beyond like make sure you schedule a nap. Like obviously there's certain things that you've heard on other podcasts. I'm always when I create these episodes, I'm always trying to think like what is something maybe that just isn't always mentioned or perhaps isn't always brought to the surface because I'm sure you've heard many times rest when the baby is resting or nap when the baby is napping. I'm sure you've heard that a bunch of times, but I really want to just bring a nuance or a different lens to this conversation that again I perhaps has you have not heard before, or perhaps that just doesn't as commonly get talked about. Okay, so let's go for it. Number one, in regards to this balance of self-care and spiritual growth, we need to accept this reality of the both and. I mentioned on my, for those of you who attended my town hall where I was sort of sharing like shifts that I'm going to be making in my own business moving forward. And this is one of those shifts. I've worked with two clients over the last year as clients of mine, but I've also been clients of theirs. Beth Bubick, the Catholic fasting coach, and Kelly Shoup, who is a Catholic parenting coach and occupational therapist. Beth Bubick's work on fasting and your thoughts around food and your thoughts around overconsumption. Like, what are you thinking when you want to go eat that thing that perhaps is not good for you? Has really just challenged me. I've done mindset work around weight loss in the past, but bringing in a spiritual element to it has just really shown me this new potential or new capacity that I never knew existed within me when it comes to having more agency over things that I never thought I could, like alcohol consumption, like simply saying, no, I'm not going to eat that. I just, in my head, I was like, no, I just enjoy wine too much. Like everything in moderation. I never, ever, ever thought I could completely eliminate wine for certain days, like completely. And that's what happened. With Kelly Shoup, I learned that everyone's body, like the senses, everyone's body has a different sensitivity to a sense. So I have a sensitivity to noise. I get taxed very quickly when there is a lot of dissonant noise, like children screaming, for a very long period of time. But I've now learned what I need to do to help my body recalibrate. And this is what I mean about accept the reality of the both and. We are human beings with human bodies. The theology of the body. When we hear about this, I think people immediately think about sexuality and some of the Catholic Church teachings on identity and gender and all the things. But it also has to do with the fact that you were given a body, like just a physical, straight up, like body that reveals something about you in the world. And I think just the faster that we realize and understand that our human bodies have limits because they are human bodies. Can grace take over and give us supernatural strength? Absolutely. Can grace and like just an abundance of again supernatural strength, like is that a reality? Yes. But it's also a reality that we're not machines that are just like sort of plugged plugged in, like meaning you have to do some of those things to take care of your body, otherwise your body will fail. I cannot eat anything I want and not expect to get diabetes. I cannot abuse my body with substances and not expect there to be a ramification, like there is a consequence to that. But I think just too often, my observation is that it's like, no, I just need to pray harder and I'll be able to manage my life better. We all need to pray harder, but we also need to accept that there are certain things that are simply necessary. And let me know if you know what I mean. Let me know if this resonates. We need to sleep. Yes, there are some people who can survive with little sleep, but it's sleep is a necessity for us to function. We need to eat, we need to drink water, we need to do all the things. Like it's just this reality sometimes I think gets forgotten about. And then I think sometimes we can be, at least people that I observe, can then just be like, well, I'm not being faithful enough, or I'm not praying enough. If I prayed more, then perhaps I would be able to get through this situation. But we have to also partner with the reality that you also sometimes need to, like, for example, here's a concrete situation. If you are sensitive to noise and you have a bunch of children like I do, yes, I could say, like, Lord, give me strength in this situation. And 100%, He's going to give it to me. But He's also given me a brain and intellect and the ability to use my judgment and my reason to say, I need a moment to step out safely from this situation and recalibrate. That is our brain. That is a human need. And I just really want to encourage people to know that about themselves. I was coaching a beautiful mom who just recently who was comparing herself to someone else in her life that she perceives has more energy than her. But when you like look at their lives side by side, they both have the same number of kids. They both have like the same ages of kids approximately. The other mom was actually even pregnant, like newly pregnant in first trimester. But her observation of that woman was that she is like got all this energy, and I constantly feel depleted. And my feedback to her was she very likely could be the kind of person who is energized by people. And that's when you see her. You're seeing her when you're socializing, when you're doing all these fun things together. She perhaps could be that kind of person who, in her body, in her senses, she's actually energized by activity. And perhaps you are just not the same. Perhaps for you, because of your temperament, because of your sensory profile, you are actually more taxed by things like noise and interaction with people, and so you're going to need more time and more things to recoup. Point I'm trying to make here is we've just got to accept this reality that we are both spiritual and human people, and that there is sometimes going to be a time when it is a spiritual problem. But I believe that this physical time, like when it is a physical problem, is a time that gets more often than not negated, because the problem is like the real heart of the problem is that moms often do not have the skill to either one, realize it, oh wait, I'm actually having a physical problem, and then two, do something about it. Whereas I see a lot of Catholic moms are equipped with things like prayer and things like spiritual practices. They have that in their wheelhouse from their upbringing or from when they went to college. They had some really good formation before they were married. They've got a really great spiritual director while they've been married, and that part is covered. But my observation and where I get real riled up, can you see, is that we just don't have as much formation in taking care of ourselves physically. Even just straight up nutrition. I did not know that carbohydrates at a certain point in a young woman's life, perhaps I'm not so young anymore, but you know what I mean? At some point, carbohydrates are not going to be the same. You're not going to have the same reaction to them, meaning like you're not going to be able to eat whatever you want. Like I could eat whatever straight up. I could eat whatever I wanted in my 20s. My family would joke about how I was like 4 plate Lisa. Like we would go to like buffets and it was at least 4 plates. Like I would have 4 plates of dinner. One time I was on vacation with my family and my mother, my family of origin and my sister, me and my husband, and we had one child, and I believe it was my in-laws were also with us. And everybody would joke all the time, "Oh, Lisa's going for second dinner, these all you can eat buffets." And we would have dinner and then we'd go watch a show or whatever, and I'd be like, "I'm right back at the buffet. Bye." Anyway, my point is that there comes a time when you can't do that anymore. And I think people get like surprised. They're like, oh, the human body doesn't just do anything I want. Like I can't just control things in my body. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I think that a lot of Catholic moms are equipped on the spiritual side or continue to equip themselves on the spiritual side, but then we negate the physical side. Let me know in the comments if this resonates with you, if you like you that you don't understand the changes in your body, nor do you feel equipped to deal with some of the more taxing physical elements of motherhood. Okay, so that moves me on to number 2, which is skill related. All right, this is straight up skill related. I want to encourage everybody to schedule activities that address both the body and the mind and spirit. You've got to schedule activities that address both the body and the mind and spirit. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because, again, you could Google like ways to get self care and you're going to get tons of things: bubble baths, chocolate, have coffee by yourself, get your nails done. And so, again, just like I like to try to keep things here that are maybe a little bit different. But the point that I want to make here is schedule the activities and do not feel guilt around scheduling these activities. That's a whole other conversation I've talked about at great length on this podcast, like guilt and motherhood. My programs are called Motherhood Without Guilt and Wealth Without Guilt. But again, if we can go back to point one, accepting the reality of the both and accepting the reality that we are spiritual people, we are mind and body, like and spirit, like the you cannot forget all of those components. I believe it makes this one a little bit easier, and it makes the guilt perhaps mitigated. If you need coaching on the guilt, I'm your girl. Because if we continue to live lives where you feel bad taking time for yourself, this leads to depletion real quick. And the reality is that you need both the physical stamina and the spiritual stamina to be a good mom. Spiritual stamina, physical stamina are going to overflow. A friend of mine on Instagram shared a quote from the book Divine Intimacy about how may we be like soak like a sponge, like so that we are overflowing to give to our families. And I believe this is both the spiritual and the physical. And I believe when we're physically ailing, we can appeal to the spiritual, Lord, give me strength in this moment. But we can also take care of ourselves physically so that we can then develop the spiritual practices. They just have to go hand in hand. Okay. And so that leads me to point number three is avoiding it, viewing it as black and white balance. So even when we titled this episode, I was like, oh, the word balance is such a trigger for me and for people because it really isn't. I believe the spiritual walk is not a balanced walk, meaning you're like, I'm putting air quotes for those of you who are listening in audio form. You're not like, I have to pray for 3 hours and then I need to like go and exercise and go to the spa and like be alone and quiet for 3 hours. Like, that's just not realistic in the life of a mom. What I find in my own spiritual life and what I find so interesting is you can pray for 15 minutes, for 5 minutes even, but let's just use 15 minutes, and it can yield incredible dividends in your day. I got the most interesting message from someone on Instagram. I was asking earlier, I'm working with a client who's doing some work for moms who feel really burned out. And the question was, when it comes to honoring some of these practices that you know are going to be good for you, so your prayer time, your appointments with your spiritual director, or maybe appointments for various retreats or recollections or what have you, when it comes to honoring these appointments that you know are going to nourish you, what's your struggle? And one mom so honestly wrote back, I have a hard time making time for prayer because I don't see immediate ROI. And I just thought that was such an honest response. And this is an area where I've had to really come to grips. I had this thought too for many years. And so for many years, I just kind of gave up, if I'm being really honest. I hate to say it, but for many years, I gave up on my prayer life. And I kind of just chalked it up to, like, I'm a mom. My mom life is my prayer life. And that there is truth in that. I'm not trying to just say that flippantly. But I do believe, yes, we can make everything a prayer. You can make every dish you wash a prayer. You can make every diaper you change a prayer. You can make every small crumb of goldfish crackers and Lego, all the Lego you step on, all the things that become undone because you have toddlers. All of those things can become a prayer. But there's also the skill of carving out those 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes where you can truly just be quiet and talk to the Lord and hear him. And what I've sort of seen evidence, and I don't know why this is making me so emotional. I think I just like, I want a mom. If you can resonate with this, if you're hearing me and you're like, yes, but this is just so not realistic for my life right now. I feel so depleted. Every conversation I have with my husband about more time for babysitting or whatever ends up in a fight. I think why it causes me so much like emotion is that I want you to fight for yourself. I want you to realize and recognize that you are so valuable to your family. Like, you are the most important investment, so to speak. Like, there's this, I listen to a lot of, I promise I'm gonna tie this all back up, but it might sound like I'm going on a really big tangent, but just go with me here. I was listening to a podcast that I listen to frequently, by a life coach school sales coach named Stacey Bayman, and she did a podcast about protecting your profit and protecting your asset, which is you. And it has those both of those podcasts have just really made me think about it from a more spiritual lens and from a more, again, physical lens. If I am the profit maker in my business, I have to protect it. I have to protect me. So I have to protect my mind. I have to protect my energy. If I'm staying up late watching Netflix all night, I will not have the capacity to serve my clients. But it's the exact same thing in motherhood. You are such an asset to your family. You are such an asset to your spouse. And perhaps you don't feel that way because maybe you feel like nobody tells you that you're an asset. Maybe you find this hard to believe because it's a thankless job sometimes, and you are, again, straight up exhausted and can't even think straight. If you are listening to this, if you're watching this, look me in the eye, okay? Pause what you're doing and listen. You are an asset to your family. The leadership role that you play in the lives of your children is irreplaceable. And in the same way, maybe not the same way, but like, just in a go with me here on this analogy. The US government invests in protecting the president. This is an analogy that Stacey Bayman brought up in her podcast. The US government, taxpayers, have money set aside for the Secret Service to protect the president. And what I'm trying to argue here is that in the same way that there are protections set up for the president of the United States, who leads an enormous country and can be under attack, that you have a similar Secret Service, quote unquote. You have similar things that protect you from both physical and spiritual attack. And this ability to navigate 15 minutes of prayer a day, or whatever it is that you can navigate, where you are truly just quiet with the Lord, I promise you is going to help in so many different ways. And I remember hearing this from other moms ahead of me on the journey and being like, you don't understand. I can't even like get dressed in the morning or go to the bathroom without getting interrupted. I get it. But it's also a skill to be like, hey, I need to hire a babysitter and figure out how I can get to my Blessed Sacrament Chapel regularly. Or I need to hire a babysitter or trade off with a friend so that I can go to confession every 3 weeks without fail, or whatever it is that you need. Or I can sometimes go to mass alone because I need that nourishment. I need that quiet contemplation. I want you to protect the asset that is you as a mom to your children all the time, and take it seriously. Okay, here are two practical ways that we can protect this asset, balance the spiritual and the physical self care. And number one is to one appointment a week that is truly just for you. This can look so different to everybody. Maybe for some people, it's like last night, I was able to go out with a beautiful group of friends and just enjoy really delicious food and really great company. And that was just such a wonderful thing that filled my both my food tank and my sanguine love of people. This can look so different for people. This could be just like, maybe you really want to do painting, like, or you want to go to a class, or you want to attend some kind of a lecture, like, again, don't get hung up on what it has to be. It could simply be you're taking your computer to a coffee shop and you're going to make 1 hour of progress on a project that you really want just for you, a book, a business, a blog, whatever it is, however you uh, quantify just for you. um, I want to encourage you to have one appointment a week. Again, might you need to get a babysitter to fulfill this one appointment a week? Maybe. Or maybe you do it when the kids are sleeping, or maybe you get up before the kids, or maybe you do it while kids are napping. I want to invite you to get really curious about how. And don't worry so much about how, but like just get curious. How could it be possible? So, one appointment a week that is truly just for you. And then here is what I've been really working on lately. And I want to share a couple things with you. And that is one appointment a week that is truly just for the Lord. So I'm going to tell you what I'm doing currently. And there's a way you can help me with it every single week, actually. So I have been challenged by my spiritual director to dedicate one appointment a week to what he's calling a recollection. And all that means is it's an extended amount of prayer. And I'm debating currently if I do this after Mass on Sundays, where I just sort of send my kids off to go play and where I sit. I already do this currently, but not as not following what he has sort of told me to do. So I'll tell you in a second. So basically, I'm debating if this is just after Mass on Sundays or if this is another time in the week. And I'll be honest with you, I think it would be better for me if it was another time in the week because I won't be distracted by my children being outside or like wanting to go home or whatever we have to do the following for the day of on Sunday. So I think it's going to end up being like a Tuesday or a Wednesday appointment that I simply just put into my calendar the same way that I have client calls on my calendar. And so, what he has challenged me to do in this time of recollection, feel free to borrow it, modify it, but he would like me to, number one, give gratitude to the Lord for all the things that he has done for me in that past week and name them specifically. Thank you, Lord, so much for, you know, literally all the things, because gratitude is so important for anyone who struggles with control, with fear of the unknown. Fear and gratitude cannot coexist. And so just this whole like launching into gratitude right off the top, giving thanks and praise to the Lord for everything in my life is what he wants me to start with. Then he wants me to go into a time of just simple quiet contemplation where I'm literally just listening, like literally just listening, staring at his face, in the Holy Eucharist, like just just listening. And then finally, a time of intercession. And this is where you can help me. So every Monday in my day in the life on Instagram at Lisa Canning, if you're not following me already, every day on Mondays, I'm going to put at the very end of my day a box where you can enter in your prayers. And then I will take all of those prayers to this weekly appointment. Like I said, it's very likely going to be on Tuesdays, maybe Wednesday. I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to take all of these prayers. You overwhelm me, not in a bad way, but I just mean in a like, I beautiful, incredible, some very challenging, but I just like, I love hearing what you want prayers for. So you can help me in this pursuit by going over on Instagram at Lisa Canning and submitting all of your intentions. And so that is the kind of appointment that I'm talking about that I am pursuing. For you, it could be totally different. It could be an hour of adoration. It could be a 15-minute, again, quiet walk with the Lord. It could be Lectio Divina. It could be honestly whatever you want, but it's an appointment in your calendar that truly is for the Lord and nobody else. Like you're not multitasking. You're just like, I'm sitting and I'm listening to you, Lord. Here I am. And again, I really want to encourage it's that actual quiet. I do believe we need the actual quiet. Yes, we can make everything in our life a prayer. And in fact, that is so essential and necessary for our sanctity. But I really believe, especially moms, just that actual quiet and strategizing how to get it and not being so worried if you don't get it. So meaning like, don't give up on prayer if you can't get it. I'm at the point in my parenting and my motherhood where I have a teenager like who can babysit with great success. We're just at a different stage where there is increased flexibility. So I can schedule these appointments that take me out of the home and design my life that way. But if you really are, it's challenging for you to get babysitting and it's challenging for you to get out of the house. Maybe you only have one car, whatever it is, schedule that quiet anyways, even if it's in your home. But if it gets interrupted, it's okay. I just did a reel on Instagram where I talked about this at great length. Just I had this like vision of what prayer had to look like, and it had to look like when I was in college, which was very like, I think I had a pink Bible and a pink rosary and a pink candle, and it all matched, and it was so Pinterest pin worthy. And I kind of thought that's what prayer had to look like in my, motherhood, and it's just like not the case. Don't give up the prayer because little kids are around and maybe interrupting you. Just like do your very best, do it anyway. And then if you can strategize, getting the actual quiet, which I believe that everyone needs, strategize that. Okay. I hope these are helpful. This is the part of the show that I want to move into Q&A. So if you have any questions about what I just talked about or anything at all, now is the time. I want to address a question that I got in my Instagram. Again, at Lisa Canning is where you can interact with me very regularly. It's always a party over there. And that is, it was a question around um, pausing your mind. So, how do you pause even when you've taken care of your body, but your mind is going a mile a minute with questions, with ideas, and you really like it's hard to pause it. Here's what I want to say to that is that sometimes I don't see the problem with pausing, with not pausing, meaning sometimes I think we can cause ourselves like too much drama, being like, this is supposed to be my time of rest and I can't calm down. Well, what if your mind is simply just like amazing at creating and it's actually really hard to turn that off? And so, what if we just eliminate the drama around it? So, that's one sort of mindset as a mindset coach, one lens I want to offer that particular question. But then also, I want to say that it can be an act of obedience to pause. So, for example, I find it hard when I'm sitting in adoration to be quiet, my brain, to just be like, I'm right here, right now. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. I'm not thinking about like what next thing has to happen with kids. We were just at parent teacher interviews and we have a beautiful Blessed Sacrament Chapel right in the kids' school. And I knew that um, I was kind of like, I knew I had at least 15 minutes before our next appointment. And I was like, so Lisa, stop. You don't have to keep checking the clock because you have 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a long time. But of course, I had a very, very hard time like staying focused and staying in the moment and not thinking about what was coming next. And so here's another assignment my spiritual director has given me. And that is simply um, being obedient to being in the place that you are. And that is it. It is simply just a straight up act of obedience. And so, to my Instagram question about pausing your mind when you have accomplished pausing your body, um, it is simply an act of obedience. Perhaps you can just view it like my spiritual director has challenged me to just be in that space and in that time. Don't be too hard on yourself if you find your brain like kind of going, going over there, but to just bring it right back and be like, Lord, I'm going to be obedient to what you've given me right now. All right. Question here from Emily. Hey, Emily. How do you balance getting solitude when your window for silence is during the time when your spouse can be with you and they really need one on one time with you as their love language? Yeah. So this is, and then Emily says, and you also need sleep and to clean the house, do work, etc. So this is something I talk about a great deal in my course, Conquer Your Calendar, that I just want to offer here to all is to literally take the week and schedule knowing that my husband needs one-on-one time. Like, that this is so part of his love language. This is so necessary. And schedule it literally as a block of time in your calendar. And so then you can be like, okay, I know that this is a need for him. My husband is the same, by the way. And this was very, very challenging for me because I just love to do. I just love to be like, oh my gosh, can we just talk while we do? Like here, let's let's fold the laundry together while we hang out. And I really quickly realized this was not quality time to him. He really likes, like my husband really enjoys like focused, quiet attention. And I'm not gonna lie, in the big, I mean, it doesn't really anymore because we've been married so many years now. So we've built the habit. But it took me a very long time to be like, this is what your spouse needs. So stop folding the laundry when you're hanging out. Okay. So when you know that and you can see, okay, every single evening it has now got an appointment in it. I used to have in my appointment, in my calendar, hang out with Josh. And it was like an hour. And I literally would put it in my evening because that's how bad I was. That's how much I could just sort of schedule my day, schedule my life full of activity. So when you have that clarity, like this is what my husband needs to thrive, you've got some options now. When do you get your time alone? Okay. And I appreciate maybe not everybody can have a babysitter. Maybe we got to get really creative, but then get really creative, get really, really strategic. How can you free up time in other ways? Can you get groceries delivered? Can you get many other things delivered? Can you get meals like delivered? Like so that there are pockets when you know maybe it's during nap time or during um quiet activities where children are literally just like you are to your room or you are over here and I need to get some time, right? Now, again, failing that, I would just constantly think about, you know, how can I like constantly think what possibility exists? What possibility exists with a friend? What possibility exists at a local church that has like a mom's morning out? Like, and just to constantly ask the question of how can this be possible? So if it's not possible in your financial means to delegate things like the cleaning, to delegate things like other housework, then you're starting to get just really curious and creative. How else can this be made possible? My favorite way is to rely on friends, really and truly. Just like what friend, Emily, could you team up with that has kids maybe like in the similar stage as you? Where one day a week, one morning a week, everybody's at your house and then everybody's at her house. One of my first clients I ever coached, her name is Jackie. She would share this with me all the time that she just had a standing appointment with a girlfriend where they always knew on whatever morning it was. Tuesday morning, she had all the kids, and then her friend ran around and did all the things or just simply took her quiet. And then on Wednesday morning, she had all the kids. So again, just creative. How can you get creative? I also used my car a lot for my own solitude. So when my kids were all really small and it wasn't like I have now where I've got teenagers who, well, one teenager who, um, can facilitate babysitting, but also where my kids largely, like a lot of my kids are more independent. I would use my car like a lot. So I would put everybody in the car. I would maybe time it with nap time, and sometimes I would just sort of like drive around until they slept. I would bring like a book or bring something I really wanted to work on, and then wherever I could pull over and just like literally have some quiet to myself. I knew everybody was safe and strapped in, and that worked out really strategically for us. I would just take a drive like every like at the same time. A girlfriend of mine, I remember, had this with spiritual direction. So her she would just team up with a friend. They would keep everybody in the cars, and this is how they would do spiritual direction and confessions, like both cars in the parking lot. They maybe had a movie on in the car. One mom would run in and do her thing, do her confession, come back out, switch. The other mom would run in and get her confession heard and then switch. So again, it requires some outside the box thinking. Certainly, yes, it may require um, legit childcare, but this is a whole other thing that we're not going to spend too much time on today. But I do believe in modern motherhood that just elements of childcare are necessary because when I always like to go back in history, um how did we live before? We lived so much more communally before. So like before there was so much more shared activity. Lots of kids could be just in one house while a mom went and did things. It was just sort of part of our history where a mom would have to leave her kids because she had to take a day journey to go and see, I don't know, like whatever, She had to go get some part for her farm or whatever, or she had to go with her husband. I don't know. But my point is that there was much greater communal living in the past. Failing that in more modern society, I encourage people to just see it as a necessity today. That it's just like, again, it was something that was maybe built into the culture before, but is no longer built in. And so, how can we strategize getting it? My husband, Josh Canning, in the comments, date night for the win. Alrighty. So, I hope that's really helpful. And I hope that you keep your questions coming, my friends. Keep your questions coming either when you watch live, or if at any time you want to have a question answered on the show, send me a note on Instagram at Lisa Canning. All right. Something I am loving this week. This is the part of the show where I share with you something I like. And I am so excited about what Beauty Counter has released for holiday. Okay, number one is this incredible cheek product that can be used on lips, it can be used on cheek, and it is Nectar, which is this gorgeous color. And like, just look at, it's just like a little teeny tiny pop of color. I find the cream application is so nice for my very dry skin. And this is a limited edition color for holiday. It comes in this adorable compact. It has such a like a 1950s like glamour glamour vibe. And then of course you can use this and like swap out the color if you felt so inclined. The other thing that I'm really liking this week is the holiday palette. Beauty Counter, knock, 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 Beauty Counter. I want this to be heard loud and clear. I miss your palettes. They used to have palettes regularly in their line. They don't anymore. And now they have these talc-free, gorgeous, gorgeous palettes. This is not working. I'm like, this is not my skills. Talk about skills. My skills at sampling makeup in real time. But it's just so pigmented. That's what I'm trying to show you here. Look at how pigmented this palette is, and talc-free. And so gorgeous. And they only do these like seasonally. They do them only limited time. So this is what I'm wearing on my eyes right now. That is something that I like. If you want to shop Beauty Counter, go to the link in the description for how you can do that. My spiritual thought of the week. This is the part of the show where I offer a spiritual thought. Now, this podcast was very much sharing a lot of spiritual thoughts, but I attended a recollection this week that there was a quote shared by Mother Teresa, and I want to share it with you. And the quote was, "What a shame it would be when someone meets me, they only meet me." Mother Teresa, what a shame it is if when someone meets me, they only meet me. I think this is why I fight so hard for moms to value themselves and stick up for themselves, because when we are formed, when we can take the time to form ourselves, we have that capacity to overflow and form our children. We have the capacity to be a light to others. It can be hard to be a light to others when you are so exhausted and feel so depleted. It can be difficult. All things are possible with God, but it can be difficult when you feel like you're just in the trenches and that you are living every day in survival. The Lord is always going to provide things to make you more holy, but I don't believe that every day has to feel like there's no hope. And if you're in that time, just please reach out to me. There are so many ways that, in real practical skills, real practical human ways, that you can feel more hope and feel a little bit more free. And it all begins in your mind. Finally, this is the part of the show where I share things to look forward to. And one of the things that I'm so excited about is next week on the podcast, I'm going to be having the beautiful Laura Vanderkam, who has just released the book Tranquility by Tuesday, 9 Ways to Calm the Chaos and Make Time for What Matters. She is going to be on the show live. I love this woman. She has written more things than I think I could ever produce about time. She has written literally, I think, 13 books on the topic of time. And just she is a valuable resource. She wrote an article about me and the beautiful Kristen Riley from One Hail Mary at a Time about large families and how um, large families can be like beautiful and happy. So excited. One other thing to look forward to is I've got a bit of an announcement that's going to be happening here on YouTube with an upload. I'm not going to make the announcement now. You can go ahead and guess if you want, if you are feeling prophetic, so to speak. But I'm going to keep you in suspense. So I want to invite you to hit the alert button because it's going to be a really fun video with a really fun announcement. So go ahead and hit the alert button if you're watching this on YouTube so that you get notified of future videos. And for everybody listening on audio, navigate yourself later on to YouTube so you can see the fun announcement. Now, I so just treasure and value our time. Please let me know how this podcast particularly has challenged you. If there is a mom in your life who feel like would benefit from it, please share it with them. And if you would write a review wherever you listen to podcasts, it helps so much to help other people see this message. And what it is that I'm really trying to do here is help moms unlock their potential in motherhood and in their business and just find hope. Hope at all times in any situation. Hope never fails. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, we'll see you here on the Possibility Mom Live.